Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
You are about to listen to the Totally Super Awesome 80s Reboot Overdrive podcast.
This podcast is our fan tribute to the Incredible Hulk TV show. Be advised it has been exposed to radiation and we caution to listen at your own risk. You have now entered GammaCast.
And welcome to the GammaCast. I'm your host, Charlie the Professor Esser. And with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey, Mozz. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 16 of The Incredible Hulk, Falling Angels. They aren't fallen yet, but they are in the process of falling. So, just watch for Falling Angels. Original air date was February 8th, 1980. David Bannister takes a job as a handyman at the Chelsea Heights Home for Girls, only to find out the girls are being schooled in the arts of pickpocketing and safecracking. Directed by Barry Crane, writers are Kenneth Johnson, Eric Kaldor. This one had like 4 writers: D.K. Krezemian, James, and James Sanford Parker. Interesting characters we get in this. One that I have to call out here is Timothy O'Hagan, who plays Peter Grant, who is sort of the well-meaning social worker in this. And I have to call him out because he was in Captain America 2, Death Too Soon, 1979, as Cal, uncredited. So I love when we get a little crossover with the other 70s Marvel verse. Let me just see.
Right on.
Yeah, well, let's see here. Just seeing, there was actually some pretty cool people who I am really impressed by in this tonight's episode is, of course, the actress who plays Jodie.
Oh boy.
Who is Debbie Morgan, who is the little black girl nobody wanted. Oh, sad. But she actually, she has a really chock-full stocked IMDb from basically 1971 on through 2016, where she was in Tony Braxton Unbreak My Heart as Evelyn Braxton. She is in a series called Power, where she plays a character named Estelle. Lot of she was on All My Children, in a recurring role, 481 episodes plus 43 additional episodes, and on The Restless as Harmony Hamilton, Bold and the Beautiful as District Attorney Jennifer Tarato. What really she has been on Charmed as the Seer. She was on Boston Public as Superintendent Marcia Shin. She was in the Spawn TV series. She did the voice of Granny Blake, a little comic book tie-in there for you.
Oh.
She was in one of my favorite soap operas as a young man, Port Charles, where she played Dr. Murray Eleanor Ellen Burgess.
That was like General Hospital spin-off, right?
Yes, well, she was also there in General Hospital as the same character. And this is why you gotta love this girl. After all, like I said, during this entire 80s, she is doing all this child acting. She was in two ABC after-school specials. The Less Than Perfect Daughter, where she played Cecilia, and The Celebrity and the Arcade Kid, where she played Jennifer Sanders. And of course, she even made it onto The Cosby Show as Tracy, and played Lisa Weston in one episode of A Different World.
Wow.
So yeah, this girl's... Oh, she was in Herman's Head, too. Just saw that. Yeah, that's one of my favorite... Anyway, so let's get to the actual plot line. So, We open up with
Wait, the two girls are running, and they run into David, and she drops the locket.
oh yes, and then David has to pick up the locket and chase after her.
Yeah, which was quite a bit of a chase. I looked at how far they got in that little bit of a time, and I would have said, you know what, maybe I'll run into them again, and that would have been the end of it for me.
Yes, well, you are not the dedicated do-gooder that David Banner is, clearly. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
David Bannister. Yes, so he catches up with them, meets Rita, our orphanage den mother, as well as Peter Grant, our well-meaning guy from the state, who basically tells her, "Hey, this Moody Drifter, he'd be a good handyman."
Yeah.
Which is just once more with just everyone just, oh, this Moody Drifter that round up here.
Although I do appreciate the effort to let us know how he gets these jobs. It was another episode where they gave us that, and I always dig that.
Yeah, oh no, that is true. That is true. It is. All I can say is people were just much more trusting of hobos in the 1980s. I mean, really.
Maybe hobos were nicer people back then too, you know?
Well, I think maybe they still are. It's just we've gotten too many serial killer hobos, and that just ruins the entire hobo profession for everybody.
What a shame.
Yes, the noble field of hoboism ruined by a few child molesting serial killers. But Adam Walsh isn't dead yet, so we still love hobos. Oh, that was dark. Anyway, so David comes into this, and and they put him to work, and he's happy to work with all these people, and the kids like them, and we find out that there's going to be a big fundraising auction.
What's an auction?
Yeah, I believe it's supposed to be an auction. Yes.
Yeah.
And we get some little racial tensions because, of course, our little Jody doesn't have to come to the shoot,
Right.
Doesn't have to go to the meat market where kids get picked up, And I wonder if that was also because of her age, because I think they said that she's supposed to be 15 here.
And she was probably good at lifting things, so they were like, you know what, let's have her stick around.
Yes. But
we get this great line with her, though, I mean, talking of racial tension, where she mistakes him for an orphan, and she goes, you kind of old, but at least you light.
Yes. Well, I noticed that. Back in the day, they were a little more forward about race in television,
And a lot open to having the conversation, it seems.
Yeah, well, what happened is that, people started having the conversation, and then white people got scared and said, let's not have these conversations anymore. Yeah. It's untoward, they said. White people very worried about things being untoward. But in the 1980s, you could talk about race, and because at that point white people felt very secure in their position.
Oh, interesting observation.
Well, yeah, because that's the thing. It's very easy to be magnanimous when you're not worried about the world changing.
Wow.
When people are getting rights out of the goodness of your own heart. This is just to wax a little political. People say, hey, Rosa Parks never rioted, and it's like, well, not for nothing, Rosa Parks didn't have to riot because when she sat down in a place, people went and rioted at her,
Right.
White people brought the riot when they would, stick dogs on you and fire hoses because you were sitting at the wrong lunch counter or drinking out of the wrong drinking fountain, Yeah, it was much easier to be a nonviolent protester back then because the violence was brought to you. You lived in a world of violence, and violence was perpetrated upon you the second you did anything outside of your norm. So, people who say that, sitting down on a bus was a nonviolent protest, it's like, well, it was only nonviolent except for all the violent people who, attacked her for it. I mean, that's
right.
Yeah, well, that's the truth of protest, man. There is no such thing as nonviolent protest. The only difference is who's being violent, Although, hey, the Women's March on Washington, no arrests. It was a very peaceful demonstration because, of course, it was the power of white privilege. As white women marched down Washington. You can't go beat up white women. You can't tear gas white women, and which is why it is very important when it comes to protests that white people be in the streets protesting, because they do have that privilege, and that does give them something of a superpower that gets them listened to and keeps the police at bay. So, if you are an activist and you are white, you have some obligation to use your superpower of whiteness for good. The way that Lou Ferrigno and the Incredible Hulk and Bill Bixby use their power of greenness for
You're right.
Yes. Just to get back to this show. So David's working there, and we do find out that the girls are being trained by Rita and her boyfriend Don, I believe.
Right. We find out how by David sees one of them pick a gentleman's pocket and almost get caught because they're running away from, the guy whose pocket they picked, and David.
Yeah, and they do get caught because, of course, this jumps ahead a little bit, but yeah, they do get caught because
I thought that's how we discover, or at least he discovers that they were.
Well, before that, I believe we do get a scene of the girls doing their dry runs. David doesn't see that, but we get to see that the girls are criminals at that point.
Gotcha.
So, but just to jump ahead. So David sees the girls pick the pocket. She chases after them, and then the closest we have to superheroes in this universe, the Garbage Men show up.
But hey, they had a sense of civic responsibility. I really thought that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, they were very, because they realized what was happening very quick, because they saw a man chasing after two girls, and they, said these girls are probably doing something they shouldn't ought to be doing. So
yeah, it seems like the orphanage had a reputation too.
Yeah, well, of course, with Rita running it, maybe that is not undeserved,
Right.
A little Fagin orphanage there. Anyway, so they capture the girl and they tell the guy. They tell David, "Oh yeah, no, we caught her. We figured this was your stuff." And says, "Here, they're about to give him back his wallet, or give him back the wallet." And they say, "Yeah, let's call the cops." And David's like, "Well, I don't think really necessary." And then one of the Earl. Lee actually is the actor. The character's name. The actor is named Earl Billings. Says, "Well, wait a minute.
Is this really your wallet?"
Yeah, is this really your wallet? And of course we get that. Not actually. And then they realize that he's probably the mastermind.
Right.
And the girls run. They throw David into a dumpster and lock him in, which leads to our first Hulk out at the hands of some of the cutest little rats I've ever seen in a movie. I mean, that was it's Willard. He's so cute. I'm sorry, no, Ben. Ben was the rat. Willard was the guy who had Ben. Yes, and of course the song Ben, sung by Michael Jackson.
Indeed.
A love song to a rat. Anyway, they bite David, and he hulks out in the dumpster, and then you see him basically tear the dumpster apart. And at this point, Lee is already off to call the cops, but his partner, I believe his name was Jeff, then has to face the Hulk single-handedly. And does not do well. He climbs to the top of the truck, and then the Hulk basically pushes the truck, which I'm guessing must have snapped the parking brake when he does that, because then the truck just rolls. And he falls into the compartment. Fortunately it doesn't compact, so he's fine. But, falls into the trash as the truck hits a telephone pole and knocks down the power lines, which, that has gotta be bad for the neighborhood, man. It just
Yeah.
Hulk caused a blackout. Collateral damage from the Hulk, man. He's a menace, I tell you.
That's why we need Jack McGee.
Exactly. Well, without Jack McGee,
We'll think of the children.
I'm sorry. Yeah, well, yeah. Actually, without Jack McGee, I mean, David would probably be cured by now because he would still be back at the lab with his female doctor friend, and they'd be working on a cure, and he wouldn't have had to go into hiding. It would have been a pretty straightforward thing. Okay, but anyway, so the girls get back. David, after his Hulk out, comes back. And we do get Jack McGee showing up on the scene while they're still cleaning up from the debris.
Right.
And they basically, the two rubbishmen give Jack the lowdown and tell him, oh, those girls, they were probably from that orphanage.
Right.
Which tells Jack where to go next.
Right. And again, nobody figures out that one guy goes in, something comes out. Couldn't have been him.
Yeah. Well, Jack knows at least. And then, of course, David, he's back at the place. He's like, lady, I gotta go. Which, again, tells us that in that proof positive episode, there had to be a real compelling reason for David to stick around after that first Hulk out,
Right.
Go back to work, punch back in. Clearly there was some amazing story that had him stay there. So, but who knows? He might have found true love on the smelting floor. We'll never know that story. But anyway, he agrees to stay for just one more day, because they need someone to help carry stuff to the woman's house. And then, of course, David catches the girls again, this time that they've broken into the safe. And Rita tells Don, oh, David screwed it up. He doesn't want the girls being criminals, yada, yada. And, of course, Rita's having second thoughts about maybe she shouldn't be turning these poor girls into criminals. And, of course, she has a nice talk with David on this subject, too, where she is basically saying, why do you think these girls would be better off without me? It's like, you really think they're going to have a better life?
Honestly, maybe she has a point.
Well, I guess, I'm sure what her basic point is like, look, I'm giving them a skill. I'm training them to be thieves. If it wasn't for me, these girls would be being exploited by someone else for some other skill they would have, a lower skill trade.
Or no trade at all, and just have to, make do with it. At least this way they can survive somehow.
Yeah. Well, the implication being that the other way that they might survive would be, prostitution.
Right.
Yeah.
Not to find a point on it, but yeah.
And that's her point. It's like, look, these are kids that nobody wants. They're the kids that nobody wanted. And, at least cracking safes, hey, it's a living. And these kids are pretty good at it, too, apparently, man. They disabling alarms, and, they got the little device that helps you crack the safe. I wonder if that's a real thing. It's like, wow, that's a pretty cool thing, man. But, yeah, so, and then they come up with this idea to basically sting Don, to have them break into the safe again, because this is Don's like, oh, we'll do it again, and that was just a dress rehearsal, and we're gonna do fine. And David basically is like, okay, so you guys break in, and his plan is, we'll have you you'll steal the jewels and you'll plant them on Don, and then you'll call me and I'll call the cops to come, and they'll find the jewels on him, and you guys will be able to walk free, and and that'll be it. But of course, as with all best laid plans, they do gang on. As the guy decides, you know what? Let's try murdering David.
Right.
Because no one's tried to murder him yet, and he is impeding our profit margins. So Let's go right to murder. And they do, for what it's worth, do a pretty good job of it. Actually, honestly, probably one of the best attempts to murder David yet. They do the quick knockout.
Right, because he's susceptible to that.
Yeah. Well, he is. He's got a glass jaw, man. You know, that's what we can say about David. Glass jaw David. Knock him out. And then what I thought was really fascinating is that their method of disposal is they put him in the fumigation tent.
Yeah.
And just basically try to poison him, which, you know, is one of these things that I think has some real. I mean, it's a pretty good way to kill a guy because, you know, if he dies and then he got in and he went to the tent when it was, you know, when the fumes were on and he didn't realize it and he died of asphyxiation. But of course that leads us to our Hulk, and this is one of these great moments where we get a Hulk. He dispatches the bad guy, and then he remembers he's got to be a superhero.
Right, and he remembers the exact address of the house that the party is being held in, an exact guy.
Yeah.
That he, you know, it's his little.
Well, because he is. I mean, because he is. You know, for what it's worth, he is still David. He still knows what his purpose is. And he's going to go do his purpose. He's going to go take care of what he has to take care of. And, of course, Jack McGee is there, because Jack McGee shows up just as the Hulk does.
I was happy for him.
Yeah.
I was really happy for him.
Well, you know, you're always happy when you get to see him. You just really wish they would do more with Jack.
Yeah.
You know, and this is, like I said, it's you know, it's which is why, like I said, why in Proof Positive it is all the more galling that David isn't actually in that episode, you know?
Right.
That, you know, that Jack McGee does all these episodes where he has almost no lines. He just basically does a reaction shot of seeing the Hulk, and that's his whole gig, you know. But he's there every week. They ask him to be. He's there, and you know, and his name is on the masthead, so he has, you know, for what it's worth, just like Bill Bixby, he gets paid whether he shows up or not, you know. But you know, so he's there and he sees the Hulk, and then the Hulk runs off after everything's been captured. Jack gets a great new story about the Hulk busting the criminal ring. And this I thought was kind of weird, is this idea that when they're doing the little wrap up of the episode, you know, you have Jody and David on the park bench, and Jody's basically saying that, yeah, you know, Rita just broke down and turned state's evidence, said she didn't mind going to jail. She just didn't want to hurt the kids anymore, which is very sweet, you know.
Right.
You know, David taught the orphanage mother how to love the kids for real. So that was very sweet.
Right.
And then
I just reminded her again of who she was.
Yeah, well, you know, it was good. It was good. And basically, Jody, you know, asks if she can come with David, and you know, again, Bill Bixby, the diva, doesn't want a sidekick. I mean, he's nice in the way he lets her down, but it is sort of one of these things where, you know, it's like, oh, just take the little orphan girl who needs a home. You know, she's a good actress. Take her with you, David. She's only going to increase the profile of the series. Oh, yeah. See, now, if this was like our modern thing, then she could actually go on and become Moon Girl with Devil Dinosaur, which is a great new series from Marvel. About a super genius girl who has a...
Oh, I've seen stuff about that.
Yeah, and she's got Devil Dinosaur, who's an old Jack Kirby creation, who's like, she can like swap brains with, so she essentially becomes the Devil Dinosaur for a period of time. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, but, you know, David says, you know, where I'm going, girl, you can't come. And you know, and honestly, for what it's worth, you know, he says to her, you know, with Rita gone, you know, you'll be, you know, they're going to treat you well here now and all this stuff. And it's like, David, you have no basis to make that claim.
Well, nor does he have any other option, really, right? He's got to make her feel good enough that he can leave without himself feeling bad. That's all. I mean, I think.
Yeah, I know. I was hoping he was going to get a sidekick. You're always hoping for these ancillary characters to stick around. Because
I
sometimes,
don't know. I don't want to see him with a sidekick. It would negate the essence of the show, and what's romantic about it is having nowhere to be,
I know. But after Marky Post doing one episode and then the Patricia Steinhauer character only being in one episode, it's like, come on, have some lasting story here. Have these people come back.
Marky Post, you mean from the last episode, the biker dude?
I'm sorry, what?
Who was Marky Post? I thought you were mentioning the biker dude from the last episode.
No, Marky Post. You weren't. You didn't see that episode. Marky Post, she's the actress who played the defense attorney on Night Court.
Ah.
But she had an episode of The Incredible Hulk where she played a a young cub reporter who is partnering with Jack McGee on the Hulk story. And they sort of have this. They sort of fall in love, as you do in a sitcom or in a TV movie from 1980 or 1979. And in fact, in Proof Positive, when Jack makes mention that there was this girl, and then when she left, he didn't even notice. I always kind of felt that was supposed to be Marky Post's character, that she, because they really do end it off like, oh, these two are going to be a team now, and they're in love, or at least forming a budding relationship, and then she never shows up again,
Poor Jack.
Yeah, well. But that is it. Cue the Lonely Man theme, and David's off to his next adventure. Final thoughts on the episode, Mozz?
I thought it was an okay episode. The story was okay. I think the drama in the episode really came from the Hulk outs. That's what I enjoyed the most about this episode.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably a very light episode, a very pat episode. It's basically Oliver with the Hulk. Which is I mean, it's not without its charms. And I will say that Debbie Morgan's character Jodie was really a great character to have in this episode. You really
well acted, well played.
Yeah, you really felt that this was and as you can see if you go to her IMDb, this is a girl that is going to go places, and she did go places after that. She was a very strong working actress. To this day, she is. So good for Debbie Morgan. Okay, so Mozz, if people would like to reach out to you and talk The Incredible Hulk or anything else, including Luke Cage or other pop cultural things that you are interested in, like Westworld or Star Trek: The Next Generation, that you don't do a podcast on yet, how can they find you?
Well, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com. That's MOZZMANZOOR. You can find me on Facebook under that also.
Excellent, man. And of course, everyone should be listening. If you're listening to this, you can, and are saying, well, gee, I just listened to the last episode of the Cage Cast today. What am I going to listen to now with Mozz and Charlie, aside from the Gamma Cast? And I will tell you that you can now listen to us on AKA the Jones Cast on the same Nuff Said feed where you got the Cage Cast. So please tune into that. And of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way our Mozz and Paws and probably David Banner did at one time as well, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And of course, follow me on the Twitters, the way the young hip kids do today, at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the two E's in the middle for quality. And no, I am back. At least this weekend I was back to live tweeting The Incredible Hulk, 7 o'clock on Saturdays Eastern Time on MeTV. It was Proof Positive this week. It was great. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hulking out with us once again. Please come back and Hulk out once more.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.
Nice.
There we go. Yeah. Okay.
You know, every time you say Mozz and Paz, I imagine two fumbling idiot friends of yours that are named Mozz and Paz. They just sound like like henchmen or something.
Very good. Okay, Mozz, my skinny rich friend. Always a pleasure working with you. I will talk to you again next week where we'll do episode 2 of Jessica Jones and, I guess where are we at? Episode 17 of The Incredible Hulk, which is The Lottery. Oh, that'll be fun. Okay.
Huh.
Yes.
Right on. Look forward to it.
Yeah, back when the lottery was a big craze in this country. You know. Okay,
Don't you still
Maz.
play every morning?
I'm sorry?
Don't you still play lottery every morning?
Oh, I play lottery too much, man. But, you got to play if you're going to win. And, dang it, I need $1 million.
Charlie wakes up in the morning, says, "Hey, look, I got $1. Hey, I do have a dream. Let's do it."
Yeah, exactly, man. I got $1. I got a dream. Let's make this happen. It goes with my coffee. And, here's why I had to keep on playing the lottery. Because my little son Tristan came up to me with like a Chinese food. Because he loves fortune cookies. And he noticed that on the back were the lucky numbers. And he came up to me and said, "Daddy, are these our lucky numbers?" And I said, "Oh, well, let me play them and we'll see." And so now I had to play those numbers in each of the lotteries going forward until we win. So,
Right, because God forbid it comes up and you don't.
Well, yeah. And it was
That
just such a cute thing. It's like just that perfect bit of cuteness from my kids. So,
How could they not be your lucky numbers now?
Yeah, exactly. Even if I don't win, it's that luckiness of that beautiful little Tristan. So, okay.
Absolutely.
I should have done this all on the show. Oh, maybe we'll make it a bumper. I don't know. Okay, Maz. Great talking to you once again. I will talk to you next week. Good night.
Right on. Have a great night, man.
You too, man. Bye.